Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company, the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys back in the Stillman and Company studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. What is, I truly think, a very loaded show. I got a lot of topics to get to today. You know, I've decided, that I wanted to put this in there, then this happened, so I want to put that in there, and so then I want to put this in there, and I want to put that in there, and I just decided, you know what, today, I'm going to hit the topics because there's a lot of things I want to get into. I'll take some reaction, but I'm going to make sure, instead of saying, hey, we're going to get to this topic, and then, it's 3:13, and I'm like, okay, we got to get out. I'm going to make sure we get all the topics in today. I'm not going to try to spread out some topics to tomorrow, though maybe I should probably do this, but we've got everything on the docket today. The Super Bowl is officially coming to Nashville, Tennessee. I got a thought on that. The Predators and their general manager search, what I know about that. Plus, what is the latest in Vrabel and Dianna, and apparently this one kind of involves me. We'll get to that. Plus, there is another NFL tabloid gossip story that I'm not surprised by, but I have questions about. And I do have a basketball thought from last night. And of course, the NFL and a story that truly affects all of us, which is where we're going to start. First, though, I do want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That is Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Let Hiller take care of your home. Let Hiller do what they do for me, for you. So if I ever have an issue, whether it's a clogged drain, whether it's a issue with the HVAC, or whether I just want to move some outlets, it's Hiller. I go right on my phone to happyhiller.com. I schedule it right there, and boom, off we go. I absolutely love Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. That's right, 100% satisfaction guarantee. Happy you'll be, or the service is free. If something's not right, they'll figure out a way to make it right. That's why I love Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, I promised we were going to start on the Mighty Shield. And I don't know if you are following this story. And I certainly don't think this is a mainstream topic that you would ever see discussed on a rights holder like ESPN or Fox. This is a story that I think Awful Announcing has done a very good job of covering. Even Pablo Torre had a podcast along with John Skipper, the former president of ESPN. Though I do think Skipper's kind of a dope, he does have insight. I thought it was very fascinating. But this is a story that I don't know how much the average NFL fan cares about it, but I care a great deal about this topic. Because what is next for the NFL and their media rights and their partners has the ability to shape the way that we consume media for years and years to come. And it may change the way that we've consumed it our entire lives. And I think that matters. And I think we're headed to a certain point down the road, but I don't know if the NFL wants to be the one to push us there. And we'll get into all of that. And I'll just load up my, kind of the backstory on this, my thoughts on it, and we'll get your thoughts in as well. Of course, we always invite people to comment down below. So I don't know if you've been following, but the NFL is looking to renegotiate their media rights deals. Right now, the NFL is primarily carried on the 4 broadcast networks: ABC, CBS, NFL, and Fox. Yes, ESPN has some inventory that is not on ABC, but pretty much every good Monday Night Football game is simulcast on ABC. ABC has the NFL draft, and this year, with ESPN technically having the Super Bowl, ABC is going to broadcast the Super Bowl. I did not include Amazon's Thursday Night Football package because Amazon is not in the Super Bowl rotation. And that Thursday night package is a package that has been owned or co-owned by the combination of NBC, CBS, and Fox. And they all backed off of it. They all were losing money. They all said no thank you to Thursday Night Football. And that opened the door for Amazon. So Amazon's package has always been a little bit less than the broadcast networks. Plus, they don't have a Super Bowl. Now, if they keep getting playoff games like they got last year, when they had Chicago and Green Bay, then maybe that'll change. But right now, Amazon is a very distant fifth. So let's name the real players for the media rights, the actual games themselves, the only thing that matters. There is not a single broadcaster on the planet who is bigger than the networks. That probably includes Joe Rogan, but he's not a football broadcaster. There's not a guy. Stephen A., Cowherd, McAfee, all of these guys can make good money. None of them are bigger than, say, YouTube. So here are the real players for the NFL's rights. The aforementioned broadcast networks, ABC, ESPN, NBC, CBS, and Fox. And kind of like how we would put with ABC, we could say, ESPN and ABC are together, which is true. The same can be said now for Turner, which is just cable. But Turner is now with CBS. So forget about them. And outside of the broadcast networks, the other major players are the tech companies. Google, which is YouTube, Apple, Amazon, and Netflix. Right now, the NFL makes about $10 billion a year from television. They make about $2 billion plus from each network, plus $1 billion from Amazon, and $2 billion from Google for Sunday Ticket. The NFL, like any business in a capitalistic society, always wants more money. Everybody wants more money. The players want more money. The coaches want more money. The owners want more money. And now the league wants more money. And they always have, and they always will. But the NFL feels entitled right now to renegotiate their broadcast contracts, which they negotiated about 5 or 6 years ago and came into effect a couple of years ago. And they're making a ton of money. They feel entitled to be able to hold the network's feet to the fire because of the NBA's new TV contract, which saw a 160% increase in yearly TV revenue, with their new TV deals bringing Amazon into the picture and bringing in NBC into the picture and saying goodbye to TNT. Which, by the way, let me state for the record, when all of the drama was going on surrounding the NBA's rights agreements, and it was announced how much ESPN was going to pay compared to what ESPN had been paying, and what they were asking TNT to pay to keep the rights, and then when TNT lost the rights, and they went to NBC and Amazon, and then TNT tried to sue them because they had a clause in their contract that they thought they could match the packages, and it was a whole shit show. I said to myself, the NBA does not drive people, in my opinion, to the TV the way that the NFL does or the way that college football does. I mean, all we ever do is talk about how baseball stinks and ESPN's getting out of Sunday night baseball business, and yet you want to pay $1 gazillion for the NBA? I never understood it. And I knew there were going to be ramifications because I didn't think the broadcast networks would make that money back. And I don't know if they have or haven't. Supposedly Peacock, which was supposed to be a big presenter of NBA games, is getting their asses handed to them from a financial standpoint. With Amazon, I don't think they care because they have so much money. They just want to build that brand out. And with ABC, ESPN, I don't know if they're losing money on the NBA deal, but it never made sense to me. I thought it was a lot like baseball's deal in the late 80s and the early 90s with CBS that cost them billions because they overpaid so much for Major League Baseball, and it led, in my opinion, to the 94 strike. So the NFL, like you and I, the NFL knows they are a vastly more popular entity and a vastly more popular product than the NBA. Again, I think the NBA is kind of on the decline. I don't know if the Jordan, Kobe, LeBron days are ever coming back. Now, I did watch the game last night. Wembanyama, he's special. That Wembanyama versus the defending champs, that series is worth watching television. Maybe it'll save the NBA. I don't know. But the NFL knows they are a much, much more popular entity and popular business in America than the NBA, and it's not even close. And I think we can all agree that's fair. And I never thought about this when, again, I couldn't believe that the TV networks would pay all that money for the NBA. But I never thought about how the NFL would feel entitled to a much bigger payday, ASAP, by the way, because they're looking at the money these networks are paying for the NBA, and they're saying, well, if that's what you're paying for the NBA, you better pay us way more money. It'd be like in the NFL, if a starting quarterback signed a new contract and the top of the market is $65 million. Now, again, a couple of years ago, if you had said $65 million for a quarterback, we all would have been like, oh. I remember when quarterbacks were signing for $40 million 5 and 6 years ago, and it was like $40 million a year. Dak makes 60. If a quarterback were to hit the open market who's worth paying, and there's probably about 18 guys that could hit the open market that would be worth paying. If it was an elite guy, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, Drake May, they could name their price. That's how it works. They would look at the guy's last contract and say, well, if he's worth that, then we're worth this. If the NBA gets a 160% increase, we get an increase too. And I think that line of thinking is logical, and I think it's fair. So what is the NFL going to do about this? And the answer, 10 times out of 10, is what they've always done, what all the leagues do, or at least try to do. They're going to start a bidding war. Get Amazon to offer $3 billion when everybody else is paying $2 billion, and then maybe CBS will step up to the plate. But here's the problem. CBS, Fox, NBC, ABC, they've got a lot of money. They've got way more money than I've got. They've got way more money than most of you have. But they don't have Amazon money. They don't have Apple money. They don't have Google money. The market caps of these companies are in the billions, which is good. CBS, I looked it up this morning. They have a market cap of $11 billion. Again, that's good. The Amazons, the Apples, and the Googles, they have market caps in the trillions. So if you go to the streamers and you say, give me your best offer, Amazon's offer, Apple's offer, Google's offer, maybe even Netflix's offer is going to be more than CBS or Fox or NBC or ABC could possibly bid. And a lot of times, I would say, what does the NFL have to care about that? Fox is shitting their pants right now because in February, Bank of America downgraded their stock. They said the NFL was too important to Fox's business and Fox doesn't own the NFL. And that's true. Rupert Murdoch said it when he overpaid in 1994 to take the NFC package away from CBS. He overpaid by about $150 million, which at the time was crazy because CBS was losing money at $220 million a year. They wanted to go down to $200. The NFL wanted to go to $250. Fox offered $400. And the reason Rupert Murdoch did it, he said at the time, in the future with cable television, the audience is going to be fractured. But as long as you have the NFL, you'll have a powerful network. Immediately, stations started picking up Fox across the country. Bart Simpson and Al Bundy were very successful. They're not the NFL. So Fox is crapping their pants over the idea of losing the games because Fox doesn't really have anything else except for the NFL and Sean Hannity. That's pretty much it. Now, if you're the NFL, there's a question to be asked here. What do you care about CBS and ABC and NBC and Fox? What does that matter to you? What do you really give a shit about those TV channels? Amy Adams Strunk is not a shareholder at Fox, or at least not that we know of. Maybe she owns stock in the company. But it is not as if Amy Adams Strunk or any of these other NFL owners are invested in Fox to the point that if it folds, they're in trouble. That's not their business. Would Fox throw the NFL a life raft if they needed it? That's why ESPN was so eager to give the NFL 10% of their business. Survival. That's what it is. If you own 10% of our business, you will be inclined to help us in the future, and we need football games. Because the truth is, nobody has an ESPN subscription to watch Stephen A. Smith. Nobody has one to watch Greenberg or McAfee or Sunday Countdown. They have an ESPN subscription to watch the games. That's why. So in order to survive, ESPN has to have the games. And again, when it comes to baseball and basketball and all the other sports, they do bring in some large audiences, but they don't bring in football's audience. So if you're the NFL and the NBA is worth 160% more, then so are you, right? So if the NFL were to go simply to the highest bidder, which again, it's really the Sunday packages, playoffs, and Super Bowls that are the big-time broadcast partners of the league. Not these one-offs with Netflix or Amazon pays a fortune for a Black Friday game. That's not the same as going to the highest bidder with your Sunday packages, which is what really moves the needle. The NBC opening kickoff, Sunday Night Football, Super Bowl. The ABC, ESPN, Monday Night Football, highlight packages, Super Bowl. CBS, they get the big 325 game every other week, the playoffs, the AFC title game, and the Super Bowl. And Fox gets the same thing with the NFC Championship game, the playoffs, the 325 games, and the Super Bowl. If you were just to take that to the highest bidder, you probably would end up putting all of your games on streamers. Because once again, they have more money than the broadcast companies. But if the NFL does that, now network TV and local TV, for the most part, probably dies. At that point, there's nothing about ABC or NBC or CBS or Fox that would differentiate any of them from what people can already watch on YouTube or the fast channels that come free with your television. Case in point, if you've got a television and you don't have an ESPN subscription, you can still get sports commentary. Caroline's show is on the free channel every morning. Jim Rome's show is on the free channel. CBS Sports HQ is on the free channel. If ESPN doesn't have games, there's no real reason to pay for ESPN. And the cable companies know that. Same with your local broadcast television. The numbers for the late night shows are nowhere near what they used to be. And mostly that's because there are so many other options. So if you're the NFL and you are only interested in maximizing your profit, what you've done is you have now ruined broadcast television and local television. Because if you don't have Super Bowls and football to advertise, your local news doesn't get that lead in. I guarantee you, News Channel 5 gets a huge rating every Sunday the Titans are on CBS. That matters. That leads into 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes leads into CBS Primetime, which then leads into the local news. They like that. So now if your local TV stations don't have any money, and local TV stations are hurting compared to what they used to be, now what happens when there's a tornado? What do? If there's no money to pay meteorologists anymore, who's going to tell us what's happening? There would not be a point without the NFL. There would not be a point in watching ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox unless you are somebody who loves one of their shows. And even then, The Bachelor, just get a Hulu subscription, right? I don't know a single show right now on CBS. Couldn't name one. Maybe if you ask me in the fall, I'll know. Because in between plays, they'll have Spiro Ditas or Andrew Catalan during a Titans game do a read for me about this all-new series coming up this fall. When, again, I can watch the series I want to watch on Amazon or Netflix, and I don't have to sit through commercials. This is why the government is getting involved. Because the way they look at it, broadcast television, local television is still important. But if you're in the NFL, do you care about the broadcast networks? Is that any of your business? Again, do the broadcast networks care about you? ABC and ESPN gave a middle finger to ESPN last year. It's a business. So then that takes us back to the streamers. If the NFL were just to look for top dollar, they would get in bed with the tech companies because the tech companies have the most money. You and I both know Amazon can pay more than ABC. Google can pay more than CBS. Apple can pay more than Fox. But if you're the NFL and you get in bed with those companies and you get away from your broadcast networks, not only do you kill broadcast television and kill local television, but you also are now working for partners that have more leverage on you than you do on them. The truth is, the NFL has the ultimate leverage over their broadcast partners, and they flex their muscles on it all the time. ESPN has a show, Playmakers. It's very popular. It depicts football players and football teams in a bad light. The NFL gets mad, and ESPN cancels the show. Now, if the NFL gets mad at Apple and were to say to Apple, okay, Apple, you've pissed us off. We're now going to put the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars on Apple, and we're going to put the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers on Amazon. I'm sure Apple, if they were paying top dollar for a Sunday package, wouldn't like it. But you'd still buy an iPhone, right? Again, the NFL cannot bully these tech companies because the tech companies could just buy the NFL if they wanted to with all the money that they have. So now, if you're the NFL and you get into bed with the tech companies, now the tech companies have all the power on you. You cannot tell Prime Video, get Bob Costas off of there or else, the way you could tell NBC. You just can't control those people. What are you going to do? Get mad at all your broadcast partners and then have to go back to the CBSs and the Foxes, which would probably be 30% of what they are now? You can't do that. Baseball tried this, by the way, in the 90s. They lost the TV contract with CBS, which was paying them billions. And they decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to produce the games ourselves, and we're going to license them out to ABC and NBC, and we're going to create our own network, and we're going to call it the Baseball Network, and we're going to rake in the cash ourselves. It was a disaster. This is why, when it comes to the NFL, I think what they're doing right now, this is a game of chess. Rupert Murdoch has played his President Trump card. The NFL, again, showed us with the schedule. They are prioritizing profit over anything else. Jim Rome said this week, he believes the reason the Patriots are playing Seattle in week 1 is not because the NFL wants to kill the Vrabel-Dianna storyline. They want to profit off of it. That's why the Sunday night schedule is loaded with TV teams, and 5 teams without good quarterbacks have no primetime games because the NFL wants every window they show to draw big ratings so they can go to the negotiating table and get top dollar. But I go back to the NFL and I ask you this: what is the plan here? What is the ultimate goal? My guess is the ultimate goal is to absolutely shake down their current partners, NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. They've already gotten a 10% cut of ESPN out of the deal. I believe they have a 15% stake in CBS. They'd like more. But how much more can you get? How much more can you take? And at what price? The price that matters to society would be killing network and local television. Again, school closing, better check the internet. And while most people have the internet, not everybody has the internet. So what does the NFL do? Do you take your Sunday packages to the big tech companies? Ask them, hey, Google, how much will you pay for the NFL? We'll pay $4 billion. CBS can't pay that. That's a third. That is more than a third of what they're worth as an entire company. Goodbye, CBS. And 30 years ago, these networks could have survived without the NFL, but even then, they knew better. CBS didn't want to pay the NFL $400 million for their games. Fox would. CBS immediately regretted that decision and paid that kind of money to get the AFC package from NBC. NBC said, we can't pay that kind of money anymore. Then about 20 years ago, ABC said, we're better off running The Bachelor than we are Monday Night Football. Let's get rid of that. They did. And when they did, NBC stepped right in and they made Sunday Night Football the new Monday Night Football. Then for years, ABC was desperate to get back in the game with the Super Bowl. Now they finally have gotten it. So what do you do? And this is why I think this topic is so important. Because it's not just about billionaires and billion-dollar corporations, and in the case of Apple, Amazon, Google, trillion-dollar corporations. It's about the future and how we consume media. My dad would be able to figure it out if the Titans were playing every week on Netflix or Amazon or Apple or Google. And he's got all of them, so he can watch it. And so can many of you. But the truth is, if this happens, that's the end of those networks. And the NFL then has to acquiesce to the streamers in a way they don't have to take orders from the broadcast networks. Adam Lefko, who does a lot of stuff with TNT and Turner, Adam Lefko told me years ago when he left doing local Louisville television to go to Bleacher Report, which would later take him to TNT. And he said to me, we were standing there, it was a press conference right after Charlie Strong had taken the Texas job. And Lefko was in Louisville for like a week. And then he was going to New York and he was going to work for Bleacher Report. And he took out his phone and he said, this is going to be your TV. And I knew he was right, but I didn't know the speed with which that was going to happen. Well, here we are 10 years later, 11 years later. It's starting to happen. Radio is already dead. Newspapers, I shouldn't say dead. Radio's dying. Newspapers, dead. If TV loses the NFL, they're dead too. And if you're the NFL, do you want that blood on your hands? So to me, this is a massive story as to what decision does the NFL decide to make. Here's the fork in the road. You have tapped out the broadcast networks, at least to a certain extent. On one hand, there's the broadcast networks. On the other hand, there's all the money. Which one do you choose? And I don't even think the league knows. Mike says, let's go to Vrabel. Shit. Look, I get it. It's funny because I'm looking in live time at how many people are watching the show. If we had a title about Vrabel and the topic was about Vrabel and Dianna, then people would be all about talking Vrabel and Dianna, and I can't stop it. There's a guy on Twitter, Tony Farmer. I had never heard of this guy before. Apparently, he covers the 49ers, I think. And he's been putting out these wild as shit tweets about Vrabel and Russini, where it's like, these are the questions that have to be asked. This has to, and it's become such an obsession that even I'm like, dude, like, that's a little too much for me. But I am aware of the Vrabel, Dianna, Russini reality. So I think I'm going to introduce a topic on the Daily Show that does involve Vrabel and Russini, and it will be our Mike Vrabel, Dianna Russini topic of the day. And since I don't have a sounder for that, we're going to go back to the old sounder made in the summer of 2023.
This Dianna Russini report comes directly from the desk of Mike Vrabel, most likely.
Boy, I'll tell you, I miss those times. Anytime Dianna would have a report, I'd play that. And I hoped you people out there were picking up what I was putting down. Now, apparently, I woke up, and lately with the Dianna Vrabel stuff, I get all kinds of Twitter reaction that I've never gotten before. And at one point, I just said, okay, fine. Like, this is an unbelievable story. I'm going to keep talking about it. Joe Rexrode would get on my ass, and he would be like, why are you still talking about this story? This is Playboy Radio. Even Adam Vingan yesterday was texting me being like, I think you should let the story die now that you guys are talking about cuckolding. And I was like, it's what the people want to talk about. Again, I'm looking in live time, and I can see people picking up onto the stream because I guess we're talking about Vrabel. So apparently a tweet of mine from 2023 has now resurfaced. If you're looking at the YouTube stream, this was November 25th, 2023 at 5:03 p.m. I believe this was a Saturday. In fact, not only do I believe this was a Saturday, I pretty much remember exactly what Saturday it was. And it was the Saturday where Michigan beat the ever-living shit out of Ohio State for the second time in a row. And my tweet was, here's what's amazing about Vrabel and Russini. She cannot hide it. Her report Thursday was about how the Titans were thinking, was about what the Titans were thinking, not what Vrabel was thinking. But now she's tweeting Buckeye fans saying he won't go to Ohio State. How would she know that if the Titans were her source? And the reason that I bring this tweet up is not because I think there's anything there. Of course, the whole time I thought there was something there. That is incredibly well documented. But apparently the internet has found this. And now people on Twitter are pulling out this 2023 tweet, and they're saying, oh my God, see. And as far as the context is concerned, on the Vrabel and Russini front, as far as that is concerned, on Thursday of that week, 2023, Thanksgiving 2023, on Thursday, Dianna put out the infamous story where she said the Titans were not going to fire Mike Vrabel. If you remember, ready, steady, Vrabel, she wrote. And that they had no interest in trading Vrabel to the New England Patriots. Now, from what I've been told, the Titans figured that they would tell that to Dianna as a message to Vrabel, basically saying, don't worry about the job rumors, just go coach. Now, in hindsight, he probably should have worried about the job rumors because they fired him anyway. And I remember when that story came out. And I said the next day on Black Friday, I said, I don't believe it. Not that I don't believe that Dianna talked to the Titans. I believe that. But I don't believe it because the Titans lied to us about Mike Mularkey, and the Titans are perpetual liars. So on Saturday, when Michigan beat the pants off of Ohio State for the second year in a row en route to Michigan winning the national championship, Dianna Russini sent out a tweet, and obviously I can't find it because she's deleted her Twitter, but Dianna Russini sent out a tweet in which she said, Sorry, Buckeye fans, but Mike Vrabel's not going anywhere. But the only person that could decide if Mike Vrabel leaves the Titans to go to Ohio State, since it's not another true NFL job, is Mike Vrabel. So if you're Dianna Russini and you're saying, hey, I have the report that the Titans are not firing Vrabel, I would say, well, when you're so convinced he's not going to Ohio State, I thought the Titans were your source on this, not Vrabel. Just highlighting. How could Dianna, the Titans don't have any say whether or not Vrabel goes to Ohio State. So if your sourcing was with the Titans, then how do you know what Vrabel's thinking? That's it. To me, this was just how frustrated I was post C.J. Stroud. And by the way, November of 2023 was when C.J. Stroud was maybe at the peak of his powers. And I said, wait a minute. How can you know that? All you know is the Titans aren't going to fire him because that's what the Titans have told you. You don't know if Vrabel would leave for the Ohio State job unless you were talking to Vrabel. And yet now people are pulling this tweet out from 2023 and they're like, see, Jared, see people, they knew in 2023. Well, if they were having an affair and you know about the affair and I know about the affair and the world knows about the affair and their spouses know about the affair and my dad knows about the affair and my mom, who couldn't give a shit and who didn't know who Dianna Russini was 2 months ago, knows about the affair, then how big of a deal is a tweet from 2023? I thought it was kind of a big deal when we talked about Vrabel and Russini at the very beginning, when I was like, I knew it. But that's because they were telling people that it wasn't true. Since then, we've had a gulag of evidence that has just come out that says, yeah, they were together. So I don't understand why this tweet from 2023 is such a big deal, but apparently Tony Farmer made it that way, and now I guess it's making its way through the rounds. So that's the first Vrabel-Dianna topic today. The second Vrabel-Dianna topic that I want to get to on today's show. Boy, I said yesterday, I believe that there are three things that are possible as far as Dianna and her husband, Kevin Goldschmidt, are concerned. Dianna Russini's husband, Kevin Goldschmidt, apparently has now been seen by both the Daily Mail and, on top of the Daily Mail, also the New York Post. On Mother's Day, it was Smoochy Smoochy, Kevin Goldschmidt and Dianna in the New York Post. This weekend, it was Dianna and Kevin Goldschmidt and their friends pre-gaming the Bruce Springsteen concert at Madison Square Garden. And I said, look, it's one of three things. And I don't know what the three things are. No idea. It could be one, he's forgiven her because he's that much of a bitch, which is possible. Love makes guys do fucking stupid things. We've all had friends that we've seen treated like absolute shit, and we've said to them, dude, you need to move on. And they're like, I know, man, but I just love her. I just love her so much, man. And it's like, oh, God, I can't. You know, those people always get married sometimes. I say always get married. Sometimes those people get married, and like a year in, their marriage is just absolute shit. And I don't know how you guys feel. I don't go the route of saying, I told you so, but I definitely feel it. The second option could be that, as I said yesterday, he's into cuckolding, which I had Easton Freeze text me because Easton obviously watches the show. Hi, Easton. We'd love to have you on again sometime. But Easton texted me about it yesterday. Adam Vingan texted me about it yesterday, talking about the cuckold stuff. And I'll just say this. It exists. Now, the Business Insider thing, where I found out yesterday in live time that 45% of men, according to a Business Insider article from 2023, are into watching their wives be cuckolded, or I guess they're the ones who are cuckolded by another man. I think that stat is a little over the top. But then I said to Easton yesterday when we were talking about this, because he doesn't believe that 45% stat either. I don't think I know what any of my friends' kinks are. Like my guy friends. And it's like, feet. I'm not into that stuff. You know, I got a friend, she's got a boyfriend who's super into it. And she told me that he like sniffs her shoes and it's like, ha, 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 ha. And that I think is a little weird. But I'm also well aware of the fact that there are a lot of people who are into that stuff. Same with some guys who like to be pegged. I don't know a single one of my guy friends out there that likes to be pegged. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying I don't know, because I don't know what any of my guy friends' kinks are. So when it says 45% of men are into watching their wives get worked by some other guy, I think that number is way too high. If you had asked me on the spot what percentage of guys are into that, I would have said 5%. But then again, you know, it is kind of a thing out there. So, okay, 15%. And, okay, well, at maximum, you could have told me 25%. Because I don't know, what's the percentage of foot fetish people? I mean, I'm thinking that's probably around 20%. I don't know. But I say this because 45%? But then again, I don't know what the percentage of people out there who are into any of this stuff is. I only know what I'm into, and it's none of that kind of stuff. So maybe if you're just part of the 55%, none of your guy friends will have the balls to tell you that they're part of the 45%. But I still doubt 45%. That still seems too high for me. But the other option is, if he's not into cucking, the other option would be that they're making it up. And most people seem to think when it comes to Vrabel and Russini and her husband, Kevin Goldschmidt, and Smoochy on Mother's Day, followed by them hanging out at the Springsteen pregame before they went to the concert, they think it's fake. And let me say this. I don't know which one of the three it is. Either he's desperate to get back with her because he's kind of a bitch, he's into watching her get plowed by other dudes, or it's fake. I don't know which one it is. I have no idea. But the sentiment seems to be that Dianna knew that the paparazzi would be there when they took the Smoochy Mother's Day shot, and now it seems like these pictures for the Daily Mail of Dianna, and she's out there just having a great time. I think it was carefree is what the Daily Mail said before the Springsteen concert. And everyone's like, there's a clear vision line. Like as if her table was like the Red Sea and it had parted like Moses. So that the paparazzi or the insider or the sleuth with a camera could just take a picture. And they think that that's too good to be true, so they think it's fake. Same with Smoochy on Mother's Day. I'm going to tell you, I don't know. And I'm not going to pretend to know. Because what I think's happening is I think the reason why a lot of people think that Mother's Day photo was staged and the Springsteen concert photo was staged is because they wouldn't take Dianna back, or they are not into watching their wife or hearing about their wife with other men. So you wouldn't take her back. I wouldn't take her back either. I've said my advice for him, move on. There are a lot of women out there that will treat you right. Trust me. But that doesn't mean he won't take her back. I am not into watching my partner get plowed by other men. In fact, the idea of it kind of makes me sick. But just because I'm not into that doesn't mean that he's not into that. So I think a lot of people are jumping the gun. They're assuming that those pictures are fake because that's what they would do in that situation, as opposed to take her back or have been okay with this the entire time. Now, some people have thought from the beginning maybe they had an open relationship. Don't you think at the beginning you would have just admitted that if that was the case? I don't think you have to come out and say we're swingers if that's what you are, and I have no idea if they are or aren't. But wouldn't you, if you're the husband and your wife is just getting torn to shreds and the boat stuff comes out, and if you knew about it and you were cool with it, wouldn't you kind of let it out that, hey, my wife and I have a unique relationship? Or maybe you keep that stuff private. I don't know. I just know it's one of the three. Either it's genuine and he doesn't see what the rest of us see, or he's into it, or it's fake. But I don't know which one it is. Speaking of tabloid gossip, has anybody seen this stuff about Annie Agar? So Annie Agar is an NFL influencer. Now, she doesn't work for the NFL. And full disclosure, I know Annie Agar. I don't know her very well. It's the kind of relationship where if we saw each other in public, we'd say, hey, we'd talk for a second or two and then go on about our day. But I do like Annie Agar. And I've got mutual friends with Annie Agar. And I think Annie Agar is really cool. You know, we hung out some at the Super Bowl. Me, her, Hutton, Withrow, Caroline. You know, we got Dreff Schwartz. We all kind of hung out a little bit. I remember sitting there at one of the parties with Annie Agar and Caroline. And I was like, ladies, I don't know how you do it because my feet hurt. So we are friendly. And I just want to put that out there on full disclosure. So there are pictures of Annie Agar that have come out from this year where she looks way skinnier than maybe in years past. And the internet took off with that and said, oh my God, look what Ozempic does. It has ruined Annie Agar. Or, oh, we are so worried about Annie Agar. And Annie Agar had to put out a video yesterday in which she said, I am not on Ozempic. This headline from Us Weekly. NFL influencer Annie Agar responds to concerns about her appearance, quote, I am not on Ozempic. And I sent out a tweet last night where I said, I stand with Annie. But I stand with Annie Agar for two different reasons. Number one, I don't think she's on Ozempic. And I understand somebody loses weight in today's society and it's like, Ozempic. And if she says that she's not taking Ozempic, again, she could lie about it, but I don't know why she would. It's not like she would get canceled for taking Ozempic. A lot of people take Ozempic. I think it's fine. But the second reason that I stand with Annie Agar, and this is not an assumption that I think that she's on Ozempic or she's taken Ozempic or anything like that, because, again, she said she wasn't. I think she's not. She said she's too afraid to take Tylenol, which I think is nuts, because I think Tylenol is the Lord's drug. But that's a different discussion. So I don't understand why anytime somebody loses weight nowadays, we look at it and we say, they took Ozempic. I saw this with Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll lost all that weight. And I watched his Men's Health kind of behind the cover shoot that Jelly Roll did. And they talked to Jelly Roll's nutritionist, who says he's got to hide vegetables and sauces because Jelly Roll doesn't like sauces. They talked to his trainer. They talked to his mentors. They talked to all these guys. Who gives a fuck if Jelly Roll's on Ozempic or not? Who gives a fuck if Annie Agar's on Ozempic? Who gives a fuck if anybody's on it? I don't understand. Why does it matter? And society is kind of shaming Ozempic the way that they used to shame fat people, where it's like, oh, you're fat, you're undisciplined, you're a lazy slob, you are the gluttonous pig. And let me tell you who feels that way the most about it. As a fat person, I think I can speak to this. Fat people, they feel judged by everybody. Oh, man, you are a glutinous pig. You are lazy. And then this drug comes along where if you're fat, you've been fat your whole life, you've tried your hardest to lose the weight, you can take the drug, and when you take the drug, you lose weight. Some people don't necessarily need it, but they take it anyway, and they lose weight. So, is that any of your fucking business? Take a person who's got diabetes, which is what GLP-1s were originally for. If that person has diabetes and they take an injection, and now I think they've got Wegovy in a pill, but if they take that pill or they take that shot every day or every month or every week or however the fuck it goes, so what? If we're talking about a 245-pound person and they drop 20% of their body weight to 190, how many years have they added to their life because of how much less work their heart is doing to pump blood through the body? I would think it's a lot. How much better do they feel about themselves every day when they wake up and they don't feel judged by every single person out there? I would think they feel pretty good about it. So when it comes to somebody losing weight in today's society, the initial belief is, oh, they're on Ozempic. And that might be true. It also may not be. But as is the case with pretty much every medication, I don't think it's any of your fucking business what somebody takes. People take antidepressants. Is it your job to know? Hey, the reason that Johnny is feeling better today is because he's on Wellbutrin. Is that how it works? Do you tell all your friends what medications you're on? Your penis pills? Your hair pills? Your cholesterol pills? Your blood pressure pills? Your anxiety pills? The pills you're not even legally supposed to have? Your Adderall pills? Is that anybody's business? So why is the weight loss drug? Why is that something that Annie Agar has to essentially hold a press conference? She's more accountable about these allegations than Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini because at least she popped on a video. And the truth is it's none of your fucking business. I take an antidepressant every day. I take Zoloft, or I take Sertaline, which I think is it's the off-brand version of Zoloft. A year after Floyd died, so this would be the training camp of 2022. Around that same time, Mark Howard passed away. And I wasn't particularly close with Mark. I had worked with Mark some. I got to know Mark some. I really respected Mark. But Mark Howard, in a lot of ways, kind of reminded me of me. We're very different people. But we loved sports. We loved being on the radio. We loved our jobs. We loved everything that we did. I love spending time with Mark. I love talking baseball with Mark. I love talking shop with Mark. I even one time had a discussion about divorce with Mark and Chris Sanders. And when Mark Howard died, it didn't shock me. Mark was in really bad shape. But when Mark died, compounded with the year anniversary of Floyd's death, I was sad and I was depressed. And eventually I reached out to my doctor and I said, hey, I am so sad and so depressed. And the doctor said, let's try you on an SSRI. And eventually I think went through a couple. You know, some of them had some side effects I didn't like so much. Eventually we settled on Zoloft. And I've been taking Zoloft every day for the last however many years. Now, let me ask you this question. Is that any of your fucking business? Is that any of anybody's business? And I don't think it is. So when it comes to whether or not Annie Agar is using Ozempic, I think Annie's a big girl. I appreciate the fact that she put out a video there. And I've told Annie in the past, I said, because Annie is very big for going viral when it comes to her content. You know, she's very good with TikTok and with YouTube shorts and things like that. I've actually told Annie, I was like, I think the next step for you in your career is to figure out how to go from a content creator and an influencer into an actual media personality. And maybe not doing that in the traditional lane. But Annie's a big girl, so she can handle people talking about whether or not she's on Ozempic, and she put it out there yesterday she's not. But I want to use this, not a defense of her. How dare you terrible people accuse her of that? I'm not doing that. But I just want to ask society, what is the big fucking deal if somebody takes Ozempic? What is the big deal if somebody is on a GLP-1? And I think there are a lot of people out there who could live years longer if they took a GLP-1, who are afraid of taking a GLP-1 because they're afraid to be shamed about it. I've thought about it. The way I look at it, I'm like, hey, if I was skinny, which I've never really been in my life, but if I was skinny, would it be better for my career? I don't know. I've thought about it. But if I start taking GLP-1s, that's none of your fucking business. And I don't know when we decided that anybody who lost weight was clearly doing it on Ozempic and that that's clearly cheating, whereas every other kind of medication's not. When you have strep throat and they give you an antibiotic, are you cheating? No, that's medicine. Same with the GLP-1s. Couple of other items to hit on because, again, I said I wanted to get through the whole show today, and I just have a lot of takes, and I have a lot of thoughts to get to. The Titans are hosting the Super Bowl. It is now official. That was kind of the lead of our show yesterday, but the Titans are going to host the Super Bowl in 2030. It's the 2029 season. There's going to be a big shebang downtown tomorrow where they honor everybody that helped make this possible, and there will be music, and there will be a drone show. Whatever. And if you want to go, that's great. I think it's a great feat for Nashville that didn't have pro sports until 1998 to be hosting a Super Bowl almost 30 years later. But what I hate, and what it's already started, and it's going to drive me crazy, is the amount of glad handing that people are going to do over the next couple of days, thanking people for putting together a bid to allow us to host the Super Bowl. I'm sorry to the lady with the Visitors Corporation. You didn't do shit. The reason we're getting a Super Bowl is because we paid $2.8 billion for a brand new dome stadium. And the reason the state decided to kick in $500 million of that was because they wanted a Super Bowl. Governor Bill Lee said it when he set aside the $500 million and said this has to be for an indoor stadium that will get us the Super Bowl. When we decided to give the Titans a new stadium, in which the Titans, I believe, will benefit off of this far more than the city of Nashville will benefit, and we decided to sell revenue bonds, which essentially takes tax money from the people and gives it to the stadium. When we decided to do that, we were paying for that stadium. And I remember at the time, Mayor Cooper, who said, we're not going to affect any Davidson County taxpayers with this stadium. Because if the Titans wanted a new stadium and they needed general obligation bonds, they could get them and they could raise our property taxes. And I thought, wow, that sounds good. So a guy out in Antioch doesn't have to pay for a football stadium that he doesn't visit, which in theory can be true. But Bob Mendez, the council member at large who was against the stadium, told me at the time, I mean, you can say the money goes here, the money goes there, but the truth is it's all money. And I heard that and I thought, you know what? That's kind of true. And my property taxes just keep going up and up and up. Now, again, someone will tell me that that's not because of the new stadium, but if we didn't have revenue bonds for the new stadium, would I be paying more in property taxes? So at the end of the day, we paid for the stadium. I mean, my family paid doubly because we all live in Davidson County and we bought season tickets. So I don't want to hear a pat on the back for all these extra people that, oh my God, thank you so much. The Nashville Visitors Bureau, thank you for putting together this package that wooed the NFL owners to go 32-0 in order to vote for Nashville to get a Super Bowl. That deal was done when they closed on the stadium. When the Titans got awarded a Super Bowl, when John Robinson was still the general manager and Mike Vrabel was still the coach. Why? Because that's when they agreed to build the stadium. That's the deal. You build a dome stadium, you get a Super Bowl. Indianapolis got a Super Bowl. Detroit got a Super Bowl. Minnesota got a Super Bowl. Jacksonville got a Super Bowl. Buffalo is not going to get a Super Bowl. But that was discussed when Buffalo decided not to put a dome on their stadium. They said, we think it'll be much bigger for us to have the home field advantage of making teams come in here and play the Buffalo Bills in January, specifically the Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills in January, than it will be to have a dome. But by doing that, you're not going to get the Super Bowl. Okay? But that's the rule. Cleveland is going to get a Super Bowl. Congratulations, Jimmy Haslam. What a great job. So I'm all for the fact that we're getting a Super Bowl. I'm all for the economic benefits, whatever they may end up being, that come for us holding the Super Bowl. I'm going to be proud because we're going to do a great job. This is not going to be like San Francisco, where people, Felger and Maz are like, I had to walk over homeless people to get here, because I don't think that's how Nashville's going to be. And I hope we do great and more people want to move here and buy homes and things like that and go ahead and raise my property value while they're raising my property taxes. But what I just can't do this glad handing of these corporate suits. We put together a presentation for the NFL. We worked of 300 people, put together this package, and we focused on how we could make this event about the NFL and Nashville, and congratulations to me. Fuck you. We are the ones that get the credit because we are paying for this. This is what you get with a $2.8 billion stadium. You get the Super Bowl, and that's what we're getting. So spare me the congratulations that we're going to see and hear for the next 3 years until the game itself. Speaking of the Titans, the Green Bay Packers have announced their front office changes. And I'll read you all the names when it comes to the Green Bay Packers front office with the promotions and hirings and everything else, because they bolded them in their release. Milt Hendrickson, John Wojciechowski, Richmond Williams, Lee Gissendaner, Matt Malespia, Pat Moore, Sam Seal, good for Sam, Luke Banuska, Mike Owen. Do you notice a name missing from that? Chad Brinker. So the Green Bay Packers lost John Eric Sullivan, one of their top executives, to be the general manager of the Miami Dolphins. And the Green Bay Packers, where Chad Brinker came from, didn't even hire Chad Brinker back. Seriously? So I have to ask, when Chad Brinker decided to leave the Titans, and I'll say leave in quotation marks, because I don't think it was a choice. I think it was a firing. And I think the reason that we haven't heard anybody off the record or anybody with sources behind the scenes talk about how Chad Brinker was pushed out is because the Titans are paying Chad Brinker not to tell people that he got pushed out. Because they know how bad it would look if after Rand, after Callahan, after Vrabel, after J-Rob, if they just keep, again, people said when they announced this, they said the Titans changed their organizational structure every year. Kaharski keeps hinting at it when he talks about what happened to all that big talk about how the general manager position was too big for one person. Brinker said, thank you, Amy, for giving me the opportunity to do this, but I don't want to be president of football operations anymore. I want to get back into personnel and scouting. Have you ever met a politician? And that's exactly what these people, Burke and Chad Brinker, and they're all politicians. I'll give Vrabel credit. He's not really a politician, but the rest of these guys, for the most part, are. Do you think there's ever been somebody that said, I enjoyed being president of the United States, but I think I'd like to get back to leading the 6th District of Missouri? No. And Brinker couldn't even land with the Green Bay Packers? If John Eric Sullivan was assistant general manager and left, and Chad Brinker said, I want to get back into personnel, and then Chad Brinker was assistant general manager hired by the Green Bay Packers, which would be a promotion from what he had when he was in Green Bay, you could sell that as that is a pure football scouting role. And if Chad Brinker was such a great football guy, like Amy Adams Strunk and her minions told you he was, then the Green Bay Packers would have recognized that and would have said, great, John Eric Sullivan's out, Chad Brinker comes right back in. The same way you've seen coordinators leave to get a head job, great, let me go bring in this guy that I know is going to be a good coordinator. Chad Brinker got fired, folks. I don't have any proof to that. Just like for years I didn't have any proof that Vrabel and Russini were doing it. I'm just telling you what it was. Chad Brinker got fired. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. Chad Brinker fired a lot of good, honest, hardworking people that were also good at what they did. So as far as I'm concerned, fuck Chad Brinker. But my problem is not with Brinker. My problem is with the organization and how they let this con artist take over the organization for pretty much 2 years. And when they decided to give him the organization, they said to me, when I asked, what is this guy's resume? They said to me, well, I mean, he worked for the Green Bay Packers for 10 years. Okay. I mean, I think they have popcorn vendors that work there for 10 years too. We're going to hire them. But now, the damage has been done. The Titans were 6-28 in Chad Brinker's 2 years of president of football operations, no matter what the ambiguity around his authority was. And he didn't get rehired by the Green Bay Packers. That should tell you something. Brian Gutekunst is still the general manager. He was the general manager when Brinker was there the first time. They're not interested. These schlubs that nobody else would hire are all the people that Amy trusts. That's a problem. And so while, again, I think Brinker was useless, I'm not going to miss him. Word on the street is Mike Borgonzi pushed him out. And that's probably a good thing. I also am concerned with how we got to that point in the first place. Because, again, Brinker's organization, who he pleasured himself at night thinking about, didn't bring him back when they easily could have. And finally, speaking of general managers and general manager searches, let's get to the Predators. There are a lot of you people out there that are very, very worried. Where is this general manager search going to go? When are they going to hire a general manager? Toronto has hired their general manager, though that looks to be a clusterfuck. New Jersey has hired their general manager. And Predator fans, I think, are getting a little antsy. They want to know, when am I going to get my general manager? And here's what I'll tell you my sense of this is. I believe the Predators put that timeline in place at the very beginning, when at the Super Bowl there was a Monday shocker that Barry Trotz was going to retire at the end of the year. And Bill Haslam said he'd like to have somebody new by the draft. That's what he said. I believe the expectations for fans out there should be by the draft. Now, that may make you uncomfortable because Toronto has already hired somebody, or New Jersey has already hired somebody. But that doesn't concern me, because the Predators aren't moving the goalposts as far as what we, the fans, should expect from their next general manager. In fact, I think there are a couple things in this general manager search that actually make me feel good about it. Number one, they told you at the beginning what the timeline was. The draft. That's when we want to have somebody. Number two, a lot of you, including me, are very worried about the idea of Tom Fitzgerald being the next general manager of the Predators, not because Tom Fitzgerald wasn't very good in New Jersey, but because Tom Fitzgerald was the team's first captain, and it would be another passing of the torch from David Poile to Barry Trotz to Barry Trotz's first captain. And we want a new way, not the Predator way anymore. Sorry about it. We love you, David Poile. We love you, Barry Trotz, but we want some new blood. Well, if they were going to hire Tom Fitzgerald, don't you think they would have done it? I mean, New Jersey's been out of the playoffs for a month. And so is Fitzgerald. He's been out of a job. And he's interviewed. So if they really liked Tom Fitzgerald, don't you think they would have hired Tom Fitzgerald? So if you're like me and you want a new era of Predator hockey that is completely detached from the last era, well, I think you're going to get your wish. And third, I believe that the Predators are handling this the right way. I believe that Sean Henry was the one who came up with the candidate pool. They interviewed with Nick Saban, who, while he's not a hockey guy, I did do the radio show for 5 years with Floyd, who Nick Saban, I think, would consider a contemporary. And I found Floyd, when it came to hockey, to be very insightful. Now, he might say home field ice or might call the puck a ball from time to time. But I felt like when it came to kind of the underlying meanings, the coach did this, the general manager did that, fans are making this excuse. Floyd was as insightful as a football guy could be, and I thought that was very insightful into hockey. So I find some comfort in Nick Saban helping weed out these candidates, as opposed to, with all due respect, David Poile or Barry Trotz, who does things a way that I don't necessarily do them. And finally, I think they're going to give the job to a guy and just say, hey, it's your organization. And that's what they should do. Not micromanage this guy and say, well, but you got to get this guy, or you got to add that guy. And I think that's the way it should be. So while you can get all panicky about what are we going to do? Toronto hired a general manager. Okay, do you want Toronto's general manager? John Choika? 19 out of 20 guys said that he's a snake. I'm good. And my gut tells me that they're going to hire somebody who's still playing or with a team that's still in it, or maybe Buffalo, who got eliminated last night. And finally, yes, Trent has put into the YouTube chat, did I miss the Wembanyama talk? No, you did not. Last night, I watched the overtimes of the Spurs and Thunder, and tonight the Cavs play the Knicks. And let me say this. I think old Wembanyama might be the guy that saves basketball. Last night's game got me to the TV. Double overtime. I believe these are the two best teams in basketball. And the war that was happening on the court reminded me of the old days pre-super team, when Kobe and Shaq with the Lakers went to 7 games and it was a war with Scottie Pippen and the Portland Trailblazers. And then a year later, Kobe and Shaq versus Mike Bibby and Peja Stojakovic and Vlade Divac and Chris Webber and the Sacramento Kings. That was great basketball. That was a battle. Jordan versus the Knicks, a battle. And I've said this. We as a society, we as a country, we just want interesting basketball. We want competitive basketball. We don't want basketball where guys have to take off every night. We don't want basketball where the players don't play hard or play any defense. We don't want basketball where we know the winner ahead of time. But if you give us good, compelling, competitive basketball, we as an American society will watch. And right now, we've got maybe the best player in the league in Wembanyama going up against the best team and the MVP in OKC. And game 1 went to double overtime. And when it comes to Wembanyama, he has been all that and a bag of chips. This fucking guy is unbelievable. Last night, I saw him miss a tip-in where I thought he tried to get too cute with the basketball in a 1-point game in overtime. I tried to have a little tip-in. I'm like, son, go up and grab that rebound and then go back up and just put it in. And the next time down the floor, Wembanyama drills a three from midcourt. It's unfair watching this guy play. And I texted my buddies and I said, this guy may be the best big man of all time in the end. That when it comes to the true big men of the game, Kareem, Bill Russell, Shaq, this guy may end up being the best big man ever. Now, I'm not going to say that he may end up being the best basketball player ever because, again, we're talking about Michael Jordan. But Wembanyama, he is worth watching. And I don't give a shit that he's not American, and I don't think America is going to give a shit that he's not American. He is worth watching. That guy, he is worth watching. I mean, he is awesome. And I think that might be able to save basketball. That's what the NBA knows they need. They need a new LeBron, a new Kobe, a new Michael, a new Larry. That's what they need. And there have been a lot of guys that we've thought maybe this can be the face of the next generation, the post-LeBron era of basketball. Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic. At one point, I thought maybe it could be John Morant in Memphis. Nope. SGA's won the MVP the last 2 years. He's kind of boring, but you put him on the same court with Wembanyama, and now all of a sudden we got some cooking. I think Wembanyama can be that next generational player. And the NBA, which markets their players more than they markets their markets. The NBA, which markets their players more than they market their teams, needs that. In baseball, yeah, Ohtani matters, but it's really about the teams. The Yankees, the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Braves. The popular teams. In the NFL, it's a little bit of both. Dallas, Green Bay, Mahomes, Josh Allen. In the NBA, it's about the star. And LeBron and Steph Curry are on their way out. It's time for a new era. And we all keep wondering who that next guy's going to be. I think it's going to be Wembanyama. Because he didn't just get me to the TV last night. He got my ass out of bed last night to get me to the TV. That was a war on the basketball court last night. And as I've said, I'm not the biggest NBA fan in the world, but if you get good, hard, competitive basketball, I will watch. And last night was what I'm used to in the playoffs. Physical, tough, exhausting, high-end talent NBA playoffs. Tonight, Cavs at Knicks, 7 o'clock. I love watching the Knicks play because I think this Jalen Brunson is awesome. Now, I think either of these two teams would get their asses kicked by either of the two teams in the West. And I don't think Jalen Brunson or Donovan Mitchell brings anybody to the television the way that Wembanyama does. But I think Wembanyama might be saving basketball. I think he might be the guy. If you get a Wembanyama versus New York final, I think basketball might be saved. And now we've hit every topic. That does it for us today. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. And make sure to tell them about this show because I don't think our numbers are going to be great because, again, I promoted the NFL talk and not the Vrabel talk. Maybe I'll promote the Vrabel talk tomorrow. I don't know. But like and subscribe. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow live at 2 o'clock.